Hello, my name is Eric, and this is Daily Drivers, where we investigate whether or not various operating systems are seriously usable on a day-to-day basis. Today we'll be looking into OS/2, IBM's intended successor to DOS and 16-bit Windows, and also the basis for Windows NT, which eventually led to modern Windows, love it or hate it. The very first version of OS/2 was entirely text mode, but the 1.1 release included a GUI called Presentation Manager, while version 2 has a different GUI called Workplace Shell. I don't know if PM apps work under Workplace Shell, although I'm guessing they probably do. OS/2 was originally developed as a joint venture between IBM and Microsoft, but nothing lasts forever, and that partnership ended with Microsoft using the OS/2 codebase to create the original Windows NT, while IBM used it to create OS/2 2.0. Yeah. OS/2 is still sold under the name Arca OS by Arca Noe, and I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation of that name. Previously, it was sold under the name eComStation by a series of companies, starting with Serenity Systems, and before that, it was just OS/2 from IBM. OS/2 is a 32-bit OS, unless you go all the way back to version 1.3 from 1990, which supported 286s and therefore was not 100% 32-bit. As of this writing, there is no 64-bit version of OS/2, and it's pretty unlikely there ever will be one. Therefore, it's limited to 4 gigs of RAM, although Arca OS can use higher amounts of RAM as a RAM disk using PAE, and if that means nothing to you, don't worry about it. OS/2 has similarities to whatever GUI you may be familiar with, icons, mouse pointer, windows, etc. But if you're used to Windows, things will feel a little different. Not worse, not better, just different. Definitely a bit of a learning curve there. Now, let's investigate the usability of OS/2. I've never used Arca OS, so I'm speaking from my experiences using eComStation and OS/2 before that, but it can't be too different. Certainly no worse, and hopefully better. Hardware support is decent. Not great, but okay. Application support is kinda mixed. OS/2 was advertised as a general-purpose OS, but in reality, it was meant for business users. This means that there is decent Office software available: Lotus, WordPerfect, MySQL, Star Office, which eventually became OpenOffice, and even Microsoft Word and Excel. But games? Not so much. Internet support is decent, with versions of Firefox, SeaMonkey, Thunderbird, and even the Apache server available, not to mention other web browsers like Netscape, Opera, Lynx, and even a custom build of Mozilla called Warpzilla. And while writing the script for this video, I found out that work is being done to port some version of Chromium to Arca OS. There is also decent support for programming, at least for certain languages: assembly, HTML, Pascal, Java, PHP, Basic, Fortran, Perl, PLI, okay, PL1, but come on, that's an I. Rex, which is the system's built-in scripting language, and of course C and C++. An older version of GCC is available, as are many tools you'd expect to find on a modern Linux system, such as debuggers, version control, including Git. There's even Flash Player if you really want it, although I strongly recommend against it. As far as viewing images and videos, there are some programs available for graphics, including even a version of the GIMP, and there are some decent video apps available, most notably an older version of VLC. An interesting thing to note is that OS/2 ships with what amounts to a complete install of 16-bit Windows called WinOS2, which should be able to run anything that Windows 3.0 or 3.1 can handle, with some limitations. I'm unsure if there's any sort of package manager or app store for modern OS/2 systems, but I kinda doubt it. I don't remember there being one in eComStation, and there definitely wasn't one in previous versions. There is a community-developed installer system called Warp-In, but that has no official standing whatsoever, even if it does have some pretty widespread usage. On the ungood side, modern programs, or at least modern versions of programs, are largely non-existent, and even if you're using something that is an older version of something modern, a lot of times there are some serious time-based incompatibilities. For example, you won't be able to open modern Office docx files in a version of Word from 1990. Also, gaming on OS/2 is effectively non-existent, aside from the usual time wasters you'd expect on any OS. You know what I mean, solitaire and such. The best game I found for OS2 was the original Quake, and I only have that in source form, no idea if it actually works. Also, let me remind you that this is a 32-bit only system, even the latest version from Arkanoe. This isn't that much of a limitation, but it means that you can only use the first 4 gigs of RAM as memory. More than that gets relegated to being a RAM disk, if your chosen version of OS2 supports it. My main workstation has 16 gigs of RAM. Do I really need a 12 gig RAM disk? Would it even work? I mean, if I put the swap file there, it'd be rockin', but doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of RAM disks and swap files in the first place? So what does all this mean? It means that, in the end, unless you're a gamer looking to play modern AAA games, OS2, and especially Arca OS, makes a good daily driver. There, I said it. Prove me wrong. That wraps things up for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, where I'll be covering mobile systems. If you liked this video, please thumb it up. If you didn't, well, you know what to do. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section, and I'll get around to answering them eventually, I swear. I'm always interested in suggestions on what OSs to cover. If you want to see me cover a particular OS, leave your suggestion in the comments section, and I'll see what I can do. My name is Eric, and thanks for watching this episode of Daily Drivers.